Welcome to the College Football Bros, the podcast with 3 returning All-Americans. And now, here are your hosts, Michael, Ryan, and Trey Newman.
Welcome to the College Football Bros podcast. I am Michael Newman, and I'm joined by a seminal member of the podcast.
Oh, same one as last year. Okay. Yes, that's me, Ryan Newman.
Well, new listeners wouldn't have realized that, Ryan. I'm also joined by the third member of our wolf pack.
That would be me, Trey Newman.
Was that the same one as last year, Ryan?
It sure was.
Wow. I honestly don't remember.
It was.
Wow.
Yep.
Well,
mix it up next year, Michael. Maybe a little hurricane action.
2021, it's going to be great. I promise.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway,
Our
be sure
year.
to follow us. Yeah. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at CFB Bros and Instagram at CFB Bros. Subscribe on YouTube. Support us on Patreon, patreon.com/collegefootballbros to get bonus episodes and to join our Discord server. And then most importantly, for the next few weeks leading up to the season, we'd really appreciate if you'd retweet our episodes, share them on Facebook, tell your friends to listen to the show. This is typically when we get most of our new listeners, so all of that would be very helpful. And let's get into it. Let's start with our first official preview of the 2020 season. It's the ACC, and we're going to start with a game of fact or fiction. What do we got,
right.
Trey?
Fact or fiction? The coach under the most pressure to succeed this year is Virginia Tech's Justin Fuente.
I'm going to say fiction. He is definitely going to be on the hot seat if they underperform. But I think the fact that he's at least overall got a pretty good record there gives him a little bit of leeway for maybe mediocre season. But my choice here of the hottest seat doesn't have any track record as a head coach other than recruiting, I guess. But it's Manny Diaz. Had a pretty underwhelming year one, going 6-7. They had some decent expectations last year. And if he doesn't improve this year, it could be a sort of a Willie Taggart type situation at Miami. So I think he's got the hottest seat.
I'm going to say this is fact. Fuente does have the most pressure to succeed just because he's been there a while. I mean, I think this is what he's going to, it's his 5th year maybe now. So he's kind of,
I think 5th year sounds right. Yeah.
How long it's been. So it's like, it's all his guys. It's his program. Culture should be in place. He's got a ton of returning talent, like 18 returning starters or even more than that, something like crazy amount of returning starters. He needs to produce. If he doesn't have a good year, when is he going to have a good year? And I mean, I just don't feel like this is the year where they have so much ever coming back. The stars have aligned, all those things. So, and the recruiting is terrible. I feel like this is kind of a prove it year. He needs to do it, or else it's, I know they finished last year pretty decent, but it's kind of leading up to like, okay, here we go.
Okay.
Diaz, I feel like still has a little more leeway.
I'm going to say fiction to combat you, Ryan, just because I think there's a lot of guys in the ACC that really need to win this year. I mean, Fuente, of course. Michael, you mentioned Manny Diaz, Dave Doran, Dino Babers,
another option.
Yeah,
Dino Babers, Pat Narduzzi, maybe. Doran seems like the most obvious, but it's not really the most sexy because NC State hasn't been too relevant lately. So, Michael, if I had to say one, I also went with Manny Diaz. They weren't going to fire him after the first year, but there were at least murmurs considering how bad the season ended. I mean, they lost games to FIU and Louisiana Tech. They got shut out in the bowl game. He's made some offseason moves to address it. Some might view it as desperate or necessary, but either way, he's trying to almost essentially go all in on the reset button in year 2. And if he has a dud year, it'd be hard. They're recruiting better, so that's encouraging. But I'd say Diaz needs to win now.
Okay. Next question: fact or fiction? From a fantasy football perspective, Sam Howell is the best quarterback option in the ACC.
There's definitely some good options here. I mean, you had some. Of course, Trevor Lawrence would be the main one. And Ian Book now. He had a really good year last year. But I'm going to say it's fact. I'm going to say Howell is. Just because of what he has surrounding him now. I mean, Trevor Lawrence has question marks on the outside. I mean, I'm sure they're going to be fine. But losing T. Higgins and Justin Ross to the injury, there's definitely some concerns there. And they're also going to be up by 50 in most games. So maybe they'll take the foot off the pedal a little bit. Whereas North Carolina, last year they were a ton of close games and probably going to be so again. I mean, and Howell as a true freshman lit it up. And we have like 38 touchdowns, something like that. It was an insane amount. So, and he had a ton of passing yards, go 3,600, top 2 returning targets coming back. So I think he's the safest option.
I'm going to say fact as well. I also consider Derek King in this, and Trevor Lawrence, like you mentioned, Ryan. But Lawrence, to me, he lost a lot from last year's team. And Derek King, in my eyes, is a little bit kind of boomer bust for me. So I'm more comfortable, or I guess I'm more confident in knowing what Howell will do, especially in year 2. They got a ton of returning production, like you talked about. Like I'm more confident in Howell at least getting. I know what I'm going to get as opposed to Derek King. It would be more of a flyer.
Like if King succeeds, how much more statistically better could he be than?
He'd be
the
pretty
running
good because he would have the running.
But Sam Howell's stats last year were insane though.
No, of course, they were. That would be fine if that was your quarterback. But Derek King's running ability puts him maybe a little bit ahead.
His ceiling, I would say Derek King's ceiling is higher because of the running in fantasy football, not real life football necessarily. But anyway, I'm going to go fact here. I think Sam Howell is number 1. I really waffled with Trevor Lawrence because Lawrence has the rushing yards, at least that Sam Howell didn't have last year. Lawrence had 500 yards and I think 9 rushing touchdowns last season. So I'm not sure if you can quite expect those numbers again, but that does give him the leg up. But the reason I went with Howell is the continuity of the team and the system around him, like you talked about, Ryan, with so much returning production coming back around him. I just think he's going into his sophomore year. He could take the leap.
Sure.
Mikhail Cunningham, anybody?
Yeah, I don't know if they pass enough, but
yeah, I know. Well, he runs.
Yeah, Louisville quarterback we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay. Last question, Ryan.
Yes.
What did you say?
Me turn.
There you go.
Me. Fact or fiction, the most impactful player sitting out this season in the ACC is Miami defensive end Gregory Rousseau.
He's a big loss, but they still have Quincy Roche and a strong defense in my eyes to kind of pick up the slack. So, it would have made them better, no doubt, but maybe not as detrimental of a loss as my pick, Sage Surratt from Wake Forest. I know Wake Forest doesn't have the same kind of aspirations as Miami going into this year, but it's a very impactful blow. Like last year, before getting injured in early November, Surratt had 66 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and 11 touchdowns. Now losing a major cog to Wake Forest's offense is going to hurt, especially considering they lost their other top 2 receivers to the NFL. So Wake's Kendall Hinton and Scotty Washington. So tough blow.
Yeah, I went with the same answer, Sage Surratt, just because you mentioned the yardage he had through 9 games. He was first in the Power 5 in receiving yards. I feel like he doesn't get talked about as much as he should, but yeah, he was huge for that team. And I think a big reason that Jamie Newman struggled down the stretch was the fact that Surratt got injured. I also considered Jalen Twyman on the interior D line for Pitt. He's a beast, but they're so stacked on that defensive line. So
they get Rashad Weaver back, who missed all last year. So and he's kind of a versatile defensive lineman, can pretty much play anywhere. So yeah, I went with the same. Surratt. If you would have had him and that Donovan Green, who showed up real awesome as a true freshman last year towards the end, he'll still be a freshman because he kept his red shirt. Those 2 guys would have made an awesome duo for Hartman. Now it's just to be tough.
Agreed. All right, cool. Let's get into our tiered rankings. So we're going to separate the ACC into 4 tiers. And of course, we'll start at the top with tier 1. And our number 1 team, no surprise here, is Clemson, of course. Their over-under is set at 10.5 for their total wins this year. And of course, everyone in the ACC is playing 11 games. So that means the question is, will they go undefeated or will they have a loss? So what do you think, Trey?
I'm leaning under. I know it's cliche, but it's hard to go unbeaten. And last year they were a play away, as we all know, from losing to North Carolina. And at that point they were very unproven. This year they lose a lot of talent, and they also lost Justin Ross in the offseason. That was a tough blow. And they also lost offensive coordinator Jeff Scott. He became the head coach at USF. So there's just a lot of moving parts going into this season. A lot of people are obviously going to focus on Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne coming back. That's great. They're both incredible, but they're going to need to replace 4 offensive linemen. They lose on the defensive side a guy like Isaiah Simmons, who was a major impactful player. They don't return a ton in the secondary. I guess I'm painting kind of a gloomy picture for Clemson, but they still have probably the most talent in the ACC. It's just not completely proven yet. Some of those blue chip guys are going to step up that we don't even know at this point. And they've got guys like Amari Rodgers as well. But you look at their schedule, someone I think could clip them. They have a really tough stretch in the back half of their schedule. It's at Notre Dame, at Florida State, home to Pitt, and at VT. I'm willing to say that one of those teams will pick them off.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. I'm going to go under. I don't think I'm ever going to pick a team to go undefeated.
Yeah.
I just
and we did it last year too. I think we all went under with Clemson, and they went undefeated.
Yeah,
I mean, it was close.
Yeah,
like
it's not going to happen 2 years in a row,
game, but yeah,
yeah, it's I mean, I think last year I was more waffly on actually going with them because we just knew how stacked they were. I mean, they had so much proven production coming back everywhere. So this year, yeah, we've seen them have like a couple years ago, we've seen them have some somewhat unproven production. They lost a lot and then they replenished and were just awesome. But it's hard to convince yourself that it's going to always happen like that, especially with all the losses. And yeah, you mentioned the secondary guys, but didn't mention like Tanner Muse, Kevon Wallace, AJ Terrell, like primetime players that made huge plays for them. And so, yeah, I'm going to go under here just because it's hard to go undefeated, but
I know I'm going under. They clearly have the best chance of any team to go undefeated, right? And of all the teams that are playing, I think it's pretty clear that it's them. And they're actually the over. I don't know if I mentioned this before. The over is actually a slight favorite, minus 125. So the betting market thinks it's more likely than not. But I think one of the reasons, along with all the talent they lost that you guys bring up, and especially at the receiving core with Higgins and Ross, but one reason is the pandemic, I think, brings about more variance and the possibility of, entire position groups getting quarantined, things like that maybe make a big upset more likely to happen this season.
Sure. Yeah. You never know. Lawrence gets sick.
Yeah. Well, I hope not, but you never know what can happen.
Yeah, you never know.
Okay. Let's move on to our number 2 team.
That's right. Our number 2 team is the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Their over-under is set at 8.5, with the over at this point being favored at minus 150. So, Ryan, where are you leaning with the Irish?
I like the Irish this year, man. I really do. They got a strong team coming back, especially the main deal for Notre Dame, and I feel like they've been doing this lately, is just the offensive line. I mean, a couple years ago, they were just stacked, and then like all of a sudden they're just stacked again. They got everybody coming back on the offensive line. They're going to run the ball extraordinarily well. Ian Book is going to have all day to throw, just like he did last year, and Book can run. So, I mean, it's just I think overall, Ian Book has been an underrated QB. I just feel like he's overlooked as far as top quarterbacks in the country. I mean, he's had some good Chase Claypool last year and some great tight ends to work with, no doubt. Claypool's loss is going to be
Cole Kmet, the tight end is gone Cole as well.
Kmet. But I'm not necessarily worried about the tight ends at Notre Dame. I mean, it's kind of almost like a Stanford thing. They just always turn out good tight ends there. So I'm pretty confident in the offense. The offense is going to be awesome. The defense, I'm a little less confident in. Only like 5 returning players. I mean, I think they'll be good, but I'm just a little bit worried more so than I am on the offense. So I'll let you guys touch more on the defense, but offensively, I'm expecting lights out.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the floor is pretty high when you've got Ian Book at quarterback and that great offensive line. And, they're going to have to find a receiver to replace Chase Claypool, but there's some candidates on the roster. So
they got that transfer from Northwestern. The greatest offense ever.
there you go.
But that guy actually wasn't that bad. Ben Skowronek, I think it was. He was actually like a decent playmaker, like the only thing Northwestern had.
Yeah, they didn't have much. And you got Tommy Rees now, the new offensive coordinator. He did pretty well in the bowl game last year, calling the plays against Iowa State. So I think there is some continuity there. I'm actually excited about the defense. I know the raw number of starters coming back isn't super high, but there's so much talent. You got Kyle Hamilton at safety. If he's not already a star, he's going to be a breakout star this year as a sophomore. Yeah. Outside linebacker, you got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, had 13.5 tackles for loss last year. And up front, some pretty good bookends with Dalen Hayes and Ade Ogundeji. I'm saying that right.
Toughies, man.
I know there's a lot of talent.
I'm going to say Devin White. Devin White, the linebacker. He's good. So.
Another guy. So I think very solid team. I think 9-2 is a likely record. So I'll go over.
I'm going over as well. Ian Book, he's had back-to-back solid years. So even if his production stays the same, they're still going to be a threat this year. So I'm liking the Irish. Almost all their tough games are in South Bend, and they avoid Virginia Tech and Miami. So I'm also going over. I did want to address one thing in general about we're going to kind of, as it'll come up, home field advantage. People are going to say naturally, oh, there's no fans there, or 20-25% capacity or whatever. But I've really come to realize, and we've talked about this, amongst the three of us, is that home field is not solely based on just crowds and crowd noise. It's the travel, staying in hotels, unfamiliar stadium environment, weather, etc. So I think it actually is going to play still somewhat of a factor this year.
Yeah, I agree. I would say it's likely reduced at least a little bit, but I think it's still definitely a factor.
What's underrated is sleep. You might not get the same amount of sleep as you would on the road as you do in your own place. So I think that's a big factor. So many studies show how great you can perform with sleep. The NBA is all about that now.
All right. Well, Ryan, you tend to put the listeners to sleep, so they should listen to you the night before games.
You're the one that drowns on and on and on. Just shut up.
Anyway, let's move on. Before we get to tier 2, we just have a brief word from our sponsor. Winning season has returned at MyBookie. Winning season means doubling your first deposit. It means survivor pools, super contests, and squares. At MyBookie, winning season means hitting all of your parlays and props with your feet up, watching your team trounce their rivals. Unless, of course, you're a Nebraska fan like us, because
wow. Other way around, yeah.
Well, we don't have to worry about that this year.
That's true. We're not going to we'll maybe not going to lose to our rivals.
As of this point.
Yeah.
Anyway, celebrate the beginning of the college football and NFL seasons. Invest in your intuition by signing up for MyBookie using the promo code CFBROS. That will double your first deposit up to $1,000. So if you deposit $1,000, they give you $1,000 in free play. So go ahead and add more excitement to the sports you love and the games you bet. From live betting to championship futures, every play you want to make is waiting at MyBookie. It's simple. Make your picks, win big, collect your cash. So again, that's promo code CFBROS to double your first deposit. Your winning season begins today, only at MyBookie.
I'm doing it. Give me $1,000 extra bucks to play with, baby.
Me too. I'll lose that. I'll lose that.
You're right back, man.
I'll show them. Okay. Let's move on to tier 2, Ryan.
Yeah. All right. We got the North Carolina Tar Heels leading us off as the top team in the tier 2. They're over under set at 7.5 now, with the overs favored pretty big there. So most people expect to go over that. But yeah, so Michael, you are leading us off here. What do you think about Sam Howell and company?
Well, winning season has begun at MyBookie. Oh, no. Oh, sorry. I'm at the wrong part of my outline.
Oops.
There's not much negative to say about this team. Like the offense, we've already brought up Sam Howell, the quarterback, a few times in this episode. He's great. The receiving core, De'Ami Brown and Daz Newsome, 2 1,000-yard receivers coming back. 2 running backs right around 1,000 yards last year. Michael Carter and Javonte Williams both back. Offense is going to be great, no question. The defense was okay last year. And it is going to be year 2 of the 3-3-5 system with Jay Bateman, which is kind of, I guess, a notoriously difficult system to pick up in year 1. So
You would
maybe
think that seems pretty tough.
Yeah, it's a big change. So maybe year 2 they'll be more comfortable. I'm pretty high on them. I think losing 3 players from the secondary that have opted out of the season because of COVID-19 is going to hurt. So there's some depth issues in the secondary. But overall, I like the team. The schedule works out, avoiding Clemson. So I'm going to go over.
Yeah, I mean, all off season, I've thought about taking under on the Tar Heels, but just because I always try and shy away from the big buzz teams, and North Carolina is one of those big buzz teams that everyone's talking about. But at this 7.5 number, I just can't. So I'm going over. I like North Carolina. There's lots of positives. Michael, you touched on the offense. Like, I don't have any quarrels with the offense. I think they're going to be able to name their number in some of their games. But you said you touched on the weakness of the defense, and that does concern me a little bit. They were average or to below average in most defensive category stats last year, but to their credit, they had a lot of youth. So maybe some of that youth develops and turns into keys for them and contributes. You were kind of a little worried about the secondary depth, and that's true, but I like their top guys. They got Storm Duck, they got Trey Morrison. They were strong contributors last year. They held defense or offenses in check. So I'm a little more confident there. Chaz Surratt is a stud, so I'm loving him at linebacker. But yeah, I will say the D-line needs to improve there. That's a big question mark there. And they're going to hit the season in stride. Their first 3 games are as favorable as you could ask for. So I think they'll use that to build some confidence and get in before they get into the meat of their schedule. So I'm going over as well.
Yeah, I'm going over North Carolina. I love Surratt, man. Just that's such a cool story, going from QB, not a very good one, to leading the team in tackles and sacks. And I mean, it's just that's just the first team all ACC. It's like, what the heck? Didn't expect that. That's pretty cool. But even with some of those guys that opted out, they still have depth. I mean, the secondary might be struggling a little bit, but if I was going to have one area to have a less depth, I'd obviously choose the secondary rather than up front. It's just nothing more demoralizing than just have no depth up front, and they do have depth on the line. They bring back some good players up front. They got 4. They're bringing in some talent too. 4 stars up front on the defensive line. So they're going to have lots of youth and guys that are ready to shuffle in and out. Tolman Fox is back. He had 7 sacks last year. So I like this group. And the offense I don't need to touch on, but yeah, I like North Carolina a lot. It's 7.5 easy. So I am going to make North Carolina my lock of the ACC.
All right. Mac Brown getting it done. Well, looks like he'll be getting it done. We'll see. Yeah. Okay. Moving on to our number 4 team, still on tier 2 in the ACC, and it is Virginia Tech. Their over-under is 7.5. The over is a slight favorite at -125. Trey, what are your thoughts on Virginia Tech?
I'm going over. I don't know about the future years for the Hokies and Fuente, but I really like them this particular year. Top 10 in returning production. You got guys like quarterback Hendon Hooker, the whole offensive line. They're also adding some production at running back via transfer with guys like Herbert and Blackshear. And Ryan, you kind of mentioned it earlier, but when Hooker got thrown into starter last year, they were kind of a different team. They were 6-0 in his first 6 starts when he was healthy. They lost their last couple games close, but the offense wasn't the issue. They still put up 30 in both those games. The other reason I like the Hokies is their schedule. It sets up really nice. They avoid Notre Dame and Florida State, and then they draw Clemson on the last game of the season in Blacksburg in December. So it'll be nice and cold. So if you have to play Clemson, that's as good of a spot to have them. So I didn't really touch on, I guess, the defense and replacing Bud Foster and some of their opt-outs. So I'll let you guys kind of get to the lunch pail defense.
Yeah, I kind of want to go a little bit on the offense, though.
Well, go ahead. All right.
Good teamwork, guys.
Yeah. Well, I'm not as sold on the offense yet. I know when Hendon Hooker came in, they were better. There's no doubt about that. His running game helped them quite a bit. And he was good through the air, but he wasn't asked to throw a whole lot. I need to see him be more consistent for them to be able to rely on his arm in big games, in games where it matters and they need to come from behind, or, he's got to make a play. So if you take out the Rhode Island game from last year, Virginia Tech was just 1-2, when he threw for at least 20 passes. So minimal passes means better results for Virginia Tech, which makes sense. But
man, you had to really, really craft something to find a record. Yeah. It's like, how can a guy that went 6-2, let's find a stat where he's 1-2 or what?
When they needed him to throw, they were not good. They lost.
His offense put up 36 points per game when he was the quarterback.
Still won 1-2, bro.
No, overall, all the games.
I'm just a little questioned. I'm not gonna, you're gonna catch fire here towards the end, and then as we've seen from some people, like, people get used to you and understand the tape a little bit better. Second year around, it's a little harder.
Okay.
But also my concern is how much they do run him. He had double-digit rushing attempts in seven of those games that he played. So he had a couple of games where he ran at least 20 times. That is a lot to ask for your quarterback, even more than a guy like Mikael Cunningham over at Louisville. So that's hard to keep up over, a long season, which I guess it's slightly less than normal now, but 11 games is, still a long time. So I'm a little worried about that. So yeah, I'm going under on Virginia Tech.
Okay. I disagree with you, Ryan. I am high on Hendon Hooker. I'm going over. I just think they were a completely different team when he took over as the starter. And like Trey said, they've just got so much production coming back. And I think they've improved the weaknesses from last year too, which was the running game on offense and the pass rush on defense. They addressed the running game, like Trey said, getting Khalil Herbert at running back from Kansas. I want to say Blackshear, the transfer from Rutgers, might not have been.
Yeah, I don't think it was approved. I think he was.
I don't think his waiver was approved, but Herbert's very good, so that's good enough there. And then Herbert's on the defense,
solid. Herbert Puka came in and was better.
Yeah, Puka Williams. We're talking about Kansas, but was better at Kansas. But Khalil Herbert averaged over 5 yards per carry in his career there, and it's not like he has great O-lines in front of him. So I think that's pretty solid. And then on the defense with the pass rush, they addressed that, getting Justice Reed, a grad transfer defensive end from Youngstown State, had 12.5 sacks last year. So I think this team is set, and the loss of Caleb Farley obviously is going to hurt at corner, sitting out because of COVID-19. But I don't know, there's almost everyone else is back. They got Rashard Ashby, a linebacker. They're just very good. So I'm going over, obviously, and that is my lock of the ACC.
Ooh, yeah, their defense.
I considered it too. Lots of returning production.
Their defense gets a decent amount of production, but they played horrible offenses last year. Only 3 teams they faced were in the top 60 of yards per play. The fourth best offense they played was Boston College last year.
Hey, you should have made it your lock, tough guy.
yeah. Still
I like North Carolina a little bit more, but hey, somebody had to play devil's advocate here a little bit.
I know.
That's fair. Okay, right. Who's next?
All right, we got at number 5, Louisville. Their over-under is set at 7, with the over being slightly favored at -125. Ryan, lead us off. What are you thinking about the Cardinals?
Yeah, give me a sec here while I get to my notes. This is like,
we're ACC, Louisville.
I know, but since they changed it all into one division, when I prepared for this a long time ago, I prepared it in 2 different divisions.
Wow.
So now it's like, I got to scroll all the way up, and here we go.
Right. Well, okay, yep, Ryan,
I got it. I'm going under on Louisville. Well, listen, they weren't 7-5 last year, but they were 3-0 in 1-score games. So that was, can't do much better than that. And the games they lost, they were blown out. I mean, so I really do think they completely maxed out their win total last year to get to 7. I don't think they could have got any higher than that. It felt like that was the best case scenario. And I just don't see a huge leap forward from them this year. Again, kind of like Hendon Hooker, a concern of mine is, can Mikael Cunningham get hurt? That's just a risk that, you have to consider because he runs so much. And then, so the offense was better than 2018, no doubt about it. And the offensive line was terrible. That's kind of another concern. The offensive line is really, really bad. And they lose Mekhi Becton on the offensive line, who was their best player, top 15 pick or so. So losing him, that offensive line, I know they have good skill talent, but if you're just getting rushed and in so much trouble every single play, I have some concerns. So I just don't see them taking a huge leap forward. They had a terrible defense. They only had returned one starter in the defensive line. Terrible secondary. Just not seeing it.
All right. Well, I'm immediately playing devil's advocate here. I'm going over. I trust Scott Satterfield, great head coach. And I think Mikael Cunningham, sure, you could talk about the risk of injury, but I'm hoping and counting on him staying healthy. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks in the country. Had he thrown one more pass last year to qualify for the leaderboards, he would have been first in the country in yards per pass attempt. So he's at least very efficient through the air. I know they didn't ask him to throw a ton, but when they did, it worked out. Like you say, a really good runner. So you combine him with Javion Hawkins at running back, had over 1,500 yards last year as a freshman. Tutu Atwell, over 1,200 yards as a receiver. This offense, I think it should be really, really good. I know the offensive line isn't very good, but that was the case last year. I know they lose Mekhi Becton, but I don't think the O-line can get all that much worse. So I love the offense. I think that's going to carry them. Defensively, you're right. They were bad, but it's going to be the first time in 5 years that they're not breaking in a new defensive coordinator. So bringing 7 starters back, some continuity finally. They got to get better.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going over on Louisville as well. This is another one of those buzz teams, and everything in me wanted to be contrarian and go against that, but I just can't. I really like this Louisville team. They're going to be, if you like them or not, Louisville is going to be one of those teams that on Saturday you're going to want to watch. They are so fun on offense, and they are so quick and high up tempo with those guys you mentioned, Cunningham, Atwell, and Hawkins. But the defense, the way I look at it is, I don't think they can be much worse. And they were still pretty good last year. They beat Mississippi State in their bowl game to get to their 8 wins. I just don't see how that could regress that much. And overall, they have 15 starters back, I believe. So it's not like they're bare. There's some returning production, and I see a little bit of improvement.
Yeah, and the big thing also is that they avoid Clemson. That's always, you got to look, are you playing Clemson and Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Are you playing the top teams? They do get Notre Dame, but they avoid Clemson and North Carolina. So schedule's not bad.
I just feel like there was no game last year where they had a close loss at all. I mean, they won as many as they possibly could. And
fair. It's a new year.
It's the chance of that happening again to me. Got to come back to the mean. Michael's all about coming back to the mean.
I'm all about you being
law
mean.
of averages.
Good one, Michael.
Good
all
one.
right,
great one.
Moving on.
Yep. All right, let's move on to what is this? Second to last one in the tier 2 here. We got the U, Miami. They're over under 7.5. And let's see here. What do we got? The over is favored at -140. So Michael, what do you think of the new look Canes?
Well, defensively, there is not really going to be a new look. They're going to be very good again. That hasn't been the problem. Quincy Roche coming in from Temple, the transfer that's a new look, getting him. Yeah. All right. You want to just poke holes in everything I say, Ryan? Is that how?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, he had 13 sacks last year. He's a great NFL prospect himself. So that'll kind of help alleviate the loss of Gregory Rousseau. And then also with Rousseau leaving, potentially Jalen Phillips can kind of replace that production. He was a former number 1 overall recruit. Apparently he's been looking good in camp. So he's a potential breakout player there. Zach McLeod is back at linebacker after redshirting last year, kind of an odd redshirt in his senior season, just to kind of like De'Aaron King did at Houston. And then there's good talent in the secondary. So defense is set. The offense is the big question. And I understand that it could be a dud, but I'm going to make the case for it working out. So I like the hire of Rhett Lashley coming in from SMU, switching from a pro style to more of a spread. And of course, you bring in De'Aaron King from Houston. He was very efficient there. 50 career passing touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And the fact that he's an unbelievable runner should hopefully negate the biggest weakness on the team, which is that offensive line. It is not great, and that's been a problem for a while, but hopefully he helps mask that, as well as bringing in his teammate Jared Williams, a tackle from Houston as a transfer. He should help as well. And there's always skill talent at Miami. You got Brevin Jordan, potential All-American tight end, some decent receivers coming back. Nobody proven, but you would expect some guys to step up. So all that is to say, it sounds like I'm going over because of all this glowing review of the offense and defense. I'm not.
What?
I mean, I kind of want to go over, but they put the number at 7.5.
Yeah, you got to.
And I'm even getting plus money on the under. I just think the value's on the under because their schedule doesn't work out great. They avoid 3 of the 4 worst teams in the conference, and they have to play Clemson. So I think they could still be a pretty good team and go 7-4. So I'm going to take the slight under, especially because that offense is boom or bust. So the bust worries me.
That's my exact thing here. Is this Miami team is total boom or bust. Like, it wouldn't shock me if they won 9 games, but I don't. They have to prove. There's so much uncertainty and so many questions that need to be answered for them to get there. So I'm actually going under, and I'm gonna make it my lock. Mm-hmm. And you kind of touched on it. Like, I like the hire of Rhett Lashley, and I'm really intrigued to see what he can do being paired with a guy like Derek King. I love King as much as the next guy, but there's going to be a lot on his shoulders this year. You mentioned their historic struggles with the offensive line. Can they actually protect this year? They were 81st without Derek King last year. They were 81st in SP plus offense. So they're going to need a pretty dramatic improvement. And I still have the image of getting skunked to Louisiana Tech in the bowl game. Obviously, it'll look different. The other thing, though, is that we need to consider is having a new offensive scheme with a new quarterback, no spring ball. That might count as something, in my opinion. And King had in his last year at Houston and before or after getting injured, there was a little Jekyll and Hyde there. His ceiling is awesome, and I hope he really does well because he's really fun to watch. I would love to get one last good hurrah this season, be able to watch him. But there's, like you said, there's just boom or bust, and I'm kind of banking more a little bit on the bust there. Not worried about the defense. And the last point I have that I found interesting was when the schedule was released, our boy Bruce Feldman, he made a tweet about breaking down the travel distance for all the ACC schools. Miami has the most miles they need to travel. They have to travel over 4,200 miles. The last place team, or the least team, is Virginia Tech. They only have to travel 1,200 miles. So that's pretty astounding. There's 3,000 more miles they have to travel than the last team in the ACC.
Interesting.
I'm also going under here. I just feel like you guys are maybe underselling maybe some of the defensive losses. Like Michael Pinckney, Shaq Quarterman, Gregory Rousseau. I mean, he was like 15 sacks or so last year. That is some huge shoes to fill. So just to say, they're going to be good. I mean, there's talent, sure, but I think there's going to be a little regression there on that side of the ball. And the offense, just no way. New system, short amount of practices, terrible offensive line, no unproven receivers, except Brevin Jordan's the only one that has. It's just, I'm not seeing it. How are they going to produce? I think Derek King's going to be out on an island out there, just like having really just struggling left and right because there's just nowhere to help. I don't think they'll be in sync. I think this is going to be a pretty bad year offensively for the U. So I'm going under. I should have made them my lock now that I think about it.
Wow. Yeah, that was a pretty strong take there.
It's just,
Trey, you brought up Bruce Feldman. It's been a while since we've had some Bruce clips on the show. Can I play a couple for us?
I would love it.
What is he feeding you his like burnt ends while he was getting you to do this late at night?
There's one. Should we go back for? I have 2 more here right now, so we'll go back for another one.
You name it: shampoo, conditioner, body wash, toothpaste, hair gel, even a wipe that leaves your tush feeling tingly.
Bruce.
Nice.
Last one.
Now you're plugging him in my face.
All right.
Wow.
Out of context, Bruce is the best. Okay. What's next? Are we on to tier 3?
No, we have one more team.
Oh yeah. That's right. Okay. Number 7, tier 2, is Florida State. Their season win total is set at 7. and the under is a slight favorite at -125. Trey, what do you think? You on board? Oh, he's doing the tomahawk chop. I guess that means he's on board.
I'm going over. I know the casual fan has seen Florida State just look like crap the last couple seasons, but I'm leaning towards a bounce back this year. They bring in a new coach, obviously from Memphis, Norvell. He brings some credibility to the Noles, in my opinion, and he's inheriting a team with 17 returning starters. They've underachieved the last couple of years. There's no secret that they don't have that they have talent there, so I'm not really concerned there. I like Blackman at quarterback. I just felt he hasn't been in the best position to succeed. There's been so much turnover. I know there's turnover this year, but Norvell knows how to maximize offensive talent. We saw him do it at Memphis, and I believe it's going to be just a totally different look and feel to this Florida State team this year, especially with receivers like Tamarion Terry, DJ Matthews. Then I'm not even talking about the defense. They bring back a ton of starters, 9 or 10 starters. You got All-American tackle Marvin Wilson, Asante Samuel in the secondary. There's a lot to like with this Seminole team. I was a little skeptical about Norvell bringing his D coordinator from Memphis, Adam Fuller. They didn't quite excel there, of course, at Memphis, but he did well at Marshall and actually did improve the Memphis D last year, even though you wouldn't really notice it looking at it right off the bat. But all of the youth and injuries from last year, I think, is going to convert into success for the Noles this year. That's why I'm going over.
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm going under on every single one nowadays. But
Yeah.
I of the 15 teams, I have 8 and 7, like 8 unders, 7 overs, I think. So I promise you it balances out. It's just maybe I just don't like tier 2 here. Except for North Carolina. I like them. Man, I can't get on the Seminole bandwagon here. To get to 8, you're telling me they got to get 8 wins? Not 8 and 3? No, not a first year coach. Changing the defensive system. Yes, they have some returning production coming back, but switching to a brand new scheme again, that's going to be hard to adjust to. The offensive line is still going to be terrible. I know they lose Cam Akers, who somehow managed to have over 1,000 yards rushing last year. He was a very good running back. Tammy Terry is great. He's a good player, but he was there last year, made a lot of big plays. He was actually had almost 20 yards to catch last year, so pretty impressive for the amount of catches he had. And it's just there's some talent there, but it's not like living up to it. Like Joshua Kando, can he live up to the potential that he had coming as a recruit? Defensive ends there have been kind of lacking the pressure. They can't seem to get there. I got questions at linebacker. It's just I don't know. Marvin Wilson's great. Tammy and Terry is great. Samuel's pretty good. And
Hamza Nasruddin.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I was looking for him, but yeah. I just overall no, I can't see them getting to 8 wins. So I got to go under.
Yeah, I can see the intrigue of the defense because there is all the guys we just mentioned, so much talent on that defense. But overall, I'm with Ryan. I'm going under. If it's going to take 8 and 3 to beat me here, with especially in this offseason, even if you believe in Mike Norvell, bringing in a totally new staff with very little spring practice, it's just not ideal timing. And then also the schedule. The only team they avoid from our first 2 tiers here is Virginia Tech. So they have a pretty tough schedule too. So yeah, I'm going under. And by the way, we brought up James Blackman at quarterback. Who knows? I think Chubba Purdy got hurt, so he may not be in that race anymore. But Jordan Travis is there as well, the former Louisville transfer, and I think a freshman Tate Rodemaker. So Blackman's probably the guy, but he's not going to have a super long leash.
No, I guess I'm just kind of banking on the new culture being better and translating to success. We shall see.
It could. Okay, let's go to tier 3.
Yeah, tier 3. We're going to look at the number 8 team in the ACC for us, the Pitt Panthers. Their over/under is set at 6. Ryan, where are you leaning with Pitt?
I am leaning over. I told you I was going to get back to these.
You got there.
There you go.
I got it. Pitt. Yeah, the Pitt Panthers. I was kind of surprised, but I think they can get to 7. I think they really can. Their non-conference game is against Austin Peay. So that's we saw they were in the spotlight there.
Yeah. They're not a bad FCS team.
Not a bad FCS team. It was a good play there. They lost, but it was a good game. That's right. They do have to play the top dogs though, Clemson and Notre Dame, but it's okay. Offense,
It's okay.
it's It's okay.
Ah,
I'll get over it. Yeah, it's just
minor
2 games.
details.
Yeah, we'll still they got 2 more losses to find somewhere else. It's okay. Offense, Kenny Pickett is back, which is okay.
Yeah, is that good? I mean,
It's okay. It's okay.
everyone
It's what
says
it
he's
is.
talented, but the production, I don't know, hasn't been
It's
there.
okay. Just I'm not.
Okay,
It's not horrible, but it's not good. Um,
that's fair.
You know that he's going to be fine. Eerily similar the last 2 years, so I don't expect him to prove much. Maybe a tiny bit. It's the second year under the same offensive coordinator.
Mhm.
They do lose Maurice French. Maurice French because he's
2 Fs.
2 Fs. Yeah. But Tazier Mack had some big games at the end, so I don't really expect the wide receivers to be a whole lot different than they were last year. Question is, can they run the ball better? Which they really, really struggle with that. They were 119th in the country, just 119 yards per game on the ground. I think they'll be better. They returned 4 starters up front. AJ Davis is back at running back, so I'm not saying they're going to jump to top 50 or anything, but they're not going to be 119th again. So that the offense, I think, will be a little bit better than last year. I know they lose Jalen Twyman on defense. That's a huge loss, the potential All-American defensive tackle. But we already kind of talked about this. They have a really good defensive line otherwise.
Mhm.
They led the nation in sacks last year. So it wasn't just Twyman doing it. I think Twyman had like 11 sacks last year. So there's a heck of a lot of sacks out there that weren't from Twyman. Rashad Weaver comes back after that injury. The D-line's going to be really, really good. So, and the Paris Ford in the secondary, he's a really good safety. So he's a stud. I just think they'll still be one of the better defensive units in the ACC, even without Twyman. So I'm going over here on Pitt because they could start off kind of hot. Their beginning of the season is not that hard. They got a key game, Louisville, 3rd game in Pitt. That's a big one.
Yeah, Pitt has kind of been, they're another team I feel like that's been a sexy pick for some people this offseason, which is weird to put Pitt and sexy in the same sentence, but I feel like that's...
And Pickett, sexy. What? Pickett's not sexy.
Anyway, I think, and it's I don't know what's going on. This is off the rails, but it's easy to see why people are so high on Pitt, because the defense, like you mentioned, is just should be really good, one of the best in the ACC. But for me, it's just I don't have faith in the offense. I know they're going to be in a lot of close games because the defense is going to keep it close, so maybe they can get lucky and win those close ones. But I don't know. I mean, last year was arguably his best year, and he had 6.6 yards per pass attempt, 13 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. So I get that people like the raw talent from him, but until I see the production, I'm not going to count on it. So I'm going under.
I'm going under as well. I do have to. We've talked about how good the defense should be, and I should reiterate the fact that I've been critical of Narduzzi just because his defenses haven't really lived up to his. That's what his calling card is. But they should be really good this year. But Kenny Pickett just seems to have hit a ceiling. Mark Whipple, you talked about it, Ryan, with the offensive coordinator. Like, he came in last year and he was still nothing improved. And we've seen enough out of him to kind of know what we're going to get. I mean, I've actually seen some Pitt beat writers have already floated the idea of seeing Arizona State transfer Joey Yellen. He just got his waiver to be eligible
Joey
this
Yellen.
year.
I think he's got a lot of potential.
Yeah. So like Pitt people are already kind of talking about that. So it'll be interesting. Like, his leash might not be that very long, might not be that long to start up the season. So that's an interesting scenario to watch out for. So I just don't like the offense. I'm going under as of now.
Okay.
All right. Good stuff. Let's move on to the next squad here in Tier 3. We got the Virginia Cavaliers. Their over-under is set at 5.5. Overs favored there at 135. And we are leading off with Miguel.
Yes, I expected to be low on Virginia, given the loss of Bryce Perkins. It just seemed like he carried that offense. But I actually still think Virginia should be pretty good. Coaching staff is almost entirely the same, which, again, in this offseason, I think is huge. Offensive line returns just about everyone, gets a Penn State grad transfer back from injury, so they should finally be decent there. Skill talent, maybe a little bit of a question mark. But Terrell Jana, I think, can be a go-to 1,000-yard type receiver. They got a grad transfer, Rayshon Henry, who had 1,000 yards in the FCS last year. And quarterback play, I think it's obviously a question mark, but I'm optimistic. Brennan Armstrong beat out Keaton Thompson, so that at least shows something. I think that he could be decent. I don't know.
That he could throw for 50% completion percentage.
Well, Keaton Thompson has other skills, Ryan. Anyway, defensively though
He couldn't beat out Nick Fitzgerald. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, well, hey, you just trashing Nick Fitzgerald? Come on, he was good.
Just throwing.
Anyway, the defense, 15th in returning production. They're good at every level. I think it's going to be a really good defense. Great group of linebackers: Noah Taylor, Charles Snowden, and Zane Zandier. And the secondary is, I think, the key because they suffered so many injuries last year. By the end of the year, it was crazy. They were down to like their 5th corner or something like that. I remember just it being just not even fair. So I think the defense will be improved. And so that's why I'm going over, even though road games at Virginia Tech, Clemson, Wake, Miami, and Florida State is not ideal.
No,
they don't have to play Notre Dame.
True.
There you go. I'm actually going to go under. People might look at this 5.5 over under and be surprised it's low because they'll remember that Virginia actually got to the Orange Bowl last year and they won the division. But that doesn't really tell the whole story to me. I think Bryce Perkins just carried this team, and they won a few close games that bounced their way that might not bounce their way this season, and not to mention that division they were in last year wasn't all that good. So there's a lot of inexperience. Brennan Armstrong, I just don't know if he can replace the production that Perkins had. Time will tell. And I do agree though, the defense should be solid. They kind of regressed a little bit last year, but again, part of that was the injury luck. With all the returning production, they should be fine. I'm just not so sure that the improvement on defense will outweigh the regression on offense. So I'm going to lean to the under.
I agree with you that the defense of improvement might not kind of make up for enough of the offensive, maybe lack of offensive, whatever they're going to regress. But I just don't think it's going to be that big. Like I think you're right, but I still think it won't be enough so where they can't get to 6 wins. So I like Virginia over. I think they can manage it. I like Bronco Mendenhall as a coach. He wins. He's a solid coach. He finds ways to do it. And I was thinking I was going to be low on Virginia too, just like Michael. After the loss of Bryce Perkins, who was awesome. I thought he carried them, and I do believe that he really did carry them, but return all their linemen, 9 starters back on D. They're going to improve there. So I don't know. I just feel I kind of just trust almost Bronco Mendenhall with a good amount of players coming back to find a way to get a winning season.
Okay. Moving on to number 10. We are still in tier 3 here, and it is Wake Forest. Their win total is set at 5.5. The under is a big favorite at -190.
Wow.
What are you thinking, Trey, on Wake?
Why not just make it 5?
Well, I'm thinking the Sage Surratt, this line made. Well, I'm not sure. I think the line might have been made before Surratt announced.
Makes sense.
Either way, I'm going under reluctantly. I love Dave Clawson. He's done wonders at Wake, 4 straight bowl games. That's really remarkable there. But my vibe, tough time talking tonight. My vibe on Wake this season is more just kind of a transition year. One thing working against them is their schedule. They have to play Clemson and Notre Dame in 2 of the first 3 weeks. So right off the bat, they're looking at a tough early start. And before the schedule changes, SP Plus actually had Wake as a favorite in only 4 games. So I'm not really seeing it. As for the actual personnel, losing Jamie Newman might not be a terrible thing. Sam Hartman has shown a lot of potential, and he's shown that he can succeed in Clawson's offense. But of course, we talk about the loss of Sage Surratt. Like that counts for something, not to mention the other top receivers that they lost to the NFL. Defense hasn't necessarily been dynamite at Wake over the years, but they have Carlos Basham, who's a stud on defense. He had 10 sacks last year. They do have a glaring issue in the secondary. They don't really return any production at corner. They could still go bowling, but I'm just not seeing it this year for Clawson. So I got to go under.
Give Clawson the respect, man. 4 straight bowl games. Here we go.
I love him. Yeah.
Hey, maybe this year you can go 5-6 and make a bowl.
Yeah. True. Probably. Yeah. Oh no, I'm going over here on Wake.
Wow.
Taking the juice money there. I'll take that heavy juice.
Plus 160.
Yeah, it's pretty good juice. I think people maybe are expecting the offense to take obviously a huge hit with the loss of Jamie Newman, some other guys that you mentioned, say Sherratt, Kendall Hinton, Scotty Washington.
Yeah,
Three
go on down
offensive
the list.
linemen.
Offensive line.
Yeah. Well, 2 starters back in the line, but if you take a deeper look, I think they'll be okay. They get a transfer coming in from Maryland, who proved he was pretty solid there when he's healthy. Their running back last year, Cade Carney, I don't know why. I felt like their backup was better when I was watching them. So I actually think the running back position will be even better. Donovan Green is going to be a great receiver there. He'll be the next Wake guy that's just like, they always come up with a stud. It seems like they always have one stud wide receiver. Last year, say Sherratt. So I think they'll do well. And the defense has got a ton of returning production. Before I finish on the offense, Dave Clawson knows how to run offense. They have a system there in place that he's got down. Okay. A couple years in a row now that they've had a good offense. They're fast paced. They're really tough to keep up with. So I like it.
Can he play offensive line too?
Well,
No, I know. I love
Coach
Clawson
him
much. Yeah, he can.
But there's a lot of experience on the defense. So I do think they'll be better. I don't think the offense will take that big of a step back. I trust Clawson. So I'm gonna go over on them. I'm taking my chances with that plus money.
Okay. I'm going under. I feel like last year was kind of regardless of what happens this year, feels like last year was a missed opportunity. Starting out 7-1, and then just the wheels kind of fell off. I think injuries had a lot to do with it. Finishing 1-4, so it was kind of a disappointing end. And yeah, I just think this year, I know Dave Clawson, he's going to do the best he can with that offense, but at some point the personnel matters, and I just think the losses are a little bit too great for it to maintain its level from last year. And the defense for Wake, it's going to be fine. It's going to be, I think, mediocre like always. Like I don't see this being a great defense. They had Boogie Basham last year, and it was still not great. So yeah, I'm going under.
You guys are going against me a lot this episode.
Yeah.
All right. Now, number 11 team, we have the NC State Wolfpack. Their over-under is set at 4, with the over being favored at -150. Which way you leaning, Ryan?
I'm going over on NC State here, thinking they can get to 5. I guess I just feel like with all these unknown variables, I just feel like there's the balance of power is going to be more equal. Like I just don't maybe think the drastic like the home field advantage type things. I just feel teams will be a little bit more on an even playing field, kind of like we're seeing in the NBA bubble. Like it just seems like every game, no matter who it is like pretty good, pretty close game. So, yeah, I'm gonna take NC State over. I mean, they were horrible last year. There's no way to sugarcoat it. The offense was absolutely terrible, especially through the air. Hopefully, Devin Leary can kind of live up a little bit more to his recruiting ranking and take a big step forward his sophomore year. It was a freshman year. Give him a little break.
Can't be any worse. It was a tough situation to be thrown into.
Yeah, he'll have more help with 5 guys coming back on the line. And he's got a good duo at running back, Bam Knight and Jordan Houston. So he's going to have some help a little bit more. You got 4 out of 5 pass catchers back. So even though they aren't great, I still think they're going to, do well. And they got a couple true freshmen, Porter Brooks, maybe can help them out a little bit. So I think the offense will definitely be better. I don't think there's any question about that. So yeah, I don't know. I feel pretty confident in them. I know they're second year of the 3-3-5 system, just like you kind of already mentioned. For the other, who was that? Miami? No.
No, it was North Carolina.
North Carolina, yeah, excuse me. North Carolina, yeah. So, if the secondary didn't get decimated with injuries like it did last year, another similar theme. NC State was decimated with injuries in the secondary last year. I think they could have been better. So I expect a decent-sized leap from NC State this year overall.
I am with you. I think they're going to be much improved. There were just so many injuries on both sides of the ball. Yeah, I love the running game this year with the 2 guys you mentioned, especially Bam Knight. And yeah, I just think they have to improve. And Dave Doran, who we mentioned earlier, is on the hot seat. He's their head coach. He's proven over a long time, maybe that doesn't get them quite as good as the fans would like, but they're usually a winning team. So I think maybe they won't quite get to a winning team this year, but I think 5 and 6 is my prediction.
I'm gonna reluctantly lean over as well. I'm not the biggest Dave Doran guy, and just kind of the eye test last year watching NC State, they were dreadful. But one of the things I wanted to do going into this year was not overreact to a bad year, especially by a quarterback. There is some potential with Leary. He's going into his sophomore year. They also bring in offensive coordinator Tim Beck, so maybe some new eyes in the quarterback room can kind of help him get a little bit better. So I'm leaning that they improve enough. They also avoid Clemson and Notre Dame, probably the two toughest teams. So that can only help. So I'm going over as well.
Yeah, they avoid Louisville too. So that the schedule is does help them out for sure.
Cool.
Okay, we're on to tier 4 now.
Yep.
The final tier.
Yep. All right, let's start it off here. What do we got? The Dukies. They're over under set at 5. Over's slight favorite there, minus 125. So Michael, what do you think about the Clausen's group?
Clausen's group. We're gonna talk away.
Clausen.
Oh man,
I can see the mistake. Cutcliffe.
Yeah, thank you.
I am not very high on Duke this year. I'm gonna take the under. Now the defense should be solid. They've got 2 really good pass rushers on the D line, Chris Rumpf and Victor Dimukeji. Secondary's good, especially if Mark Gilbert, former All ACC cornerback, coming back from injury. I think he was like injured for 2 years, so big question mark there. But that's a potential lottery ticket. I worry about the offense though. They've got Noah Gray's a good tight end, but other than that, I don't see a lot of great pieces. It was bad last year, and as much credit as Cutcliffe gets for being an offensive guru, their passing stats for several years in a row have not been very good. Even with Daniel Jones getting drafted, first round, was he number 1 overall? He was.
It was like 6th or something. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. That's right. Yeah, he fell a little bit, but still, they weren't good with him at quarterback. So I don't expect the offense to be great. And by the way, their win total, the reason it's as high as it is at 5 is because the schedule works out extremely well. They avoid Clemson, Miami, Louisville, and Pitt. Those are the 4 teams that they avoid. So they're going to win maybe one more game than you might expect looking at the roster, but I'm going to go under the 5.
I'm actually going to go over.
No, I know that's wrong. That's wrong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, 6. Come on now.
No, I know the offense has been poor the last couple years, and they had a lack of a solid running game, but they still, even last year, went 5-7 with how bad it was. I see improvement and a little bit better season. They're going to get a little bit more out of Chase Bryce at quarterback.
Yeah, I forgot to bring up Chase.
Yeah. That's all right. The Clemson quarterback transfer, he's the one thing in the offseason is that Cutcliffe addressed the lack of a running game, and I think he's aware of that, and that's gonna improve. So I think the offense will at least be more competent this year with Chase Bryce, and hopefully Chase Bryce is the guy that can help Duke get that offense where it should be under Cutcliffe. And then, like you kind of laid out the defense, they should be pretty solid this year. That's where I'm a little bit more encouraged. And a couple guys that to keep in mind that you didn't mention were Marquise Waters and Michael Carter in the back end. So I'm a little more encouraged with the defense and hoping the offense improves. So that's why I'm going over.
I'm gonna disagree with you, Trey. I'm not sold on Chase Bryce at all. I just coming in, brand new system, new QB. Usually
again, it's the bad off season to be.
Yeah, and usually Cutcliffe has some time to develop his guys. Their passing stats, like I mentioned, haven't been good. At least the last few years, they've had a guy that could actually run a bit. Like Quentin Harris had a good dual threat, a little bit of ability. Even Daniel Jones was decent on the ground when he was there. So yeah, I think it'll be I don't think he'll be as good as Quentin Harris was last year. Running game limited. Deion Jackson, I mean, he's okay, but he's just not that great. I mean, his average per carry, I think, was in the 3s. It was for college. That's horrible. That's pretty horrible for the NFL, but even more so in college. So yeah, I don't think the offense will be very good. And the defense, yeah, they do have some solid pieces, but they do lose the heart and soul. Kobe Kwanzaa, the linebacker, he was maybe their best player last year, got the leader of their defense, and he's gone. So I just feel like 4 wins is a lot more likely than them getting to a winning record. So I'm passing. I'm taking the under.
Okay, moving on to number 13 in tier 4 here. Syracuse, their over-under is 5. The under is a -150 favorite. What are you thinking, Trey?
I'm reluctant, but I'm going over. Dino Babers has his work cut out. They were really disappointing last year, going 5-7. They had a lot of expectations, and I'm not really seeing enough improvement this year to at least get them back to those high expectations that they had. But they return. Well, I guess one of the other bad factors is they only return 9 starters. But I think Tommy DeVito is actually going to improve this year. There was a lot of weight on his shoulders last year. There was a lot of expectations. And I think this year, the team as a whole, the Orange, are going to be able to fly a little bit under the radar. That won't be the issue this offseason. I think having hit kind of his second full year under his belt now, or going into this year, DeVito should play a little bit better. As far as the defense is concerned, they've got a solid safety in Andre Sisco. Outside of that, there's a lot to be desired, but I think that 5 is just a little too low in my opinion. I've kind of laid out a negative view of them, but the Orange, they have a manageable schedule. They avoid Miami, Florida State, and Virginia Tech. So I think there's enough teams on the schedule that can get them over the hump this year.
Mm-hmm. And the 4th team they avoid is Virginia. So 4 pretty good teams to miss.
I'm going under on the Qs. Just don't see it. I have no problem really with DeVito all that much. I mean, he's fine. But I just don't think he's gonna have a lot around him. I don't see the offensive line being good. His leading rusher's gone. 3 out of the top 4 pass catchers.
Tristan Jackson at receiver was huge for them last year, and he's gone. So that's huge.
New offensive coordinator. No spring ball again. Tough situation there. New defensive coordinator. 3-3-5 defensive
breaking into
coordinator.
3-3-5.
Get in the 3-3-5. Getting a lot of pubs this episode. Gets Rocky Long's episode here. The San Diego State coach who kind of patented that defense. So yeah, I mean, last year Syracuse defense was supposed to be really good with the players they had, and it ended up being pretty bad. Alton Robinson was a major disappointment. So I just two new systems, both sides of the ball. Not a whole lot of production coming back. Nah, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, I am. Ryan, you laid it out perfectly there, so I don't need to add anything more. I'm going under on Syracuse as well.
I sure did.
All right.
Been screwing up a bunch this episode, so you were due.
Yeah, I picked myself up a little bit.
Redeemed himself. All right. Our 14th team is Boston College. The over-under is set at 4, with the over being favored at -140. Which way are you leaning, Ryan, with the boys from Chestnut Hill?
I'm leaning under on BC this year. It's a lot of new faces to have to deal with. The backfield's gone. Anthony Brown was there, played a lot of football for them, got better each year. They're gonna miss it. I know he wasn't amazing. Michael was giving me a little look there.
No, I'm not.
Jerkovich.
He was good when he played.
Yeah,
he was out for much of last year.
Yeah. I like to call him Jerkovich. I know it's Jerkovic. Excuse me. That is a key though, getting him in there. So we'll see. Maybe he can really offset that loss.
Tell the listeners who he is. That not all of them know.
Sorry, he's a transfer from Notre Dame. So he was a highly recruited guy. Came in, and now he's going to be approved from the NCAA. So he's got eligibility now. So yeah, I don't see, even with Jerkovic, I'm not banking on it. They lose AJ Dillon. They do have David Bailey, who was a solid backup. So there's no wrong with that. And they do have a few cast pet. You gave me all that compliment. Now I'm just like, sorry. Perfect. Now I'm going from top to worst here. But let me just get the defense, how horrible that was last year. Dead last. Dead last in the ACC, 125th in total defense. Teams just did whatever they wanted to them. Kansas put 48 on them. So they lose some key pieces, a new system. I just, come on. I'm not seeing it from BC. It's just going to take some time for Hafley to get that turned around.
Yeah, of course, the new head coach Jeff Hafley from Ohio State. Maybe he can improve the defense. We'll see. But I don't have much to say about the defense because I'm going over. So I want to focus on the offensive line. 4 potential all ACC guys. You got Tyler Vrabel at left tackle,
Vrabel's
a rising
good.
star. He seems destined to be a first-round pick. Top 3 receivers coming back: Kobe White, Hunter Long at tight end, Zay Flowers, who was a good weapon as a true freshman. You mentioned David Bailey. I don't think they're going to skip a beat losing AJ Dillon. I think Bailey is going to be a beast. And when they said I would go under here if it was going to be Dennis Grosel or whoever the quarterback was going to be before. But with Phil Dracovic, I know we haven't seen much, but I just think his ceiling is so much higher than anyone they had on BC's roster.
Certainly Grosel.
Yeah, I think I'm just very bullish on him and just the little bit we saw at Notre Dame and the recruiting pedigree. So yeah, I'm going over.
I gotta go the opposite. I gotta go under. Jeff Hafley's first year. I'm kind of treating this as a year 0 for him. They drew a really tough slate as well this fall. His calling card is defense, so he'll need to sprinkle some magic pixie dust on that defense in order to improve, because they were dreadful last year. And if they don't improve at least a decent amount, it might be another tough year for the boys. So I'm got to go under.
Okay.
Yep.
Final team.
Final squad. Number Quince. Georgia Tech. Over under set at 2.5 here. Michael. Oh, is it Michael leading us off?
Yeah, I'll go first.
All right. Let me get my battery. My computer's going to die. Sorry about that.
Oh, well, if Ryan dies, then goodbye. You can go get your battery. There he goes. All right, Ryan's not listening.
He's gone.
I'm gonna give Ryan a B- effort right now for this podcast. He can improve though. I'm going over because they're second in the nation in returning production. They played a ton of freshmen last year. Year 2 of the new offense, of course, that's a big transition. I think with, after year 1, year 2, year 3, it's just they're going to get better and better as they bring in more recruiting classes to fit the offense. And the O-line is in particular the biggest transition with the shift from away from the triple option. They've gotten bigger there. They added 6 freshmen, added a couple transfers from Tennessee and Vanderbilt. So hopefully they can be better than 130th in the nation, according to Pro Football Focus. That's what they graded out as last year. So it didn't really give the quarterback much of a chance. But Jordan Mason's a great lead running back. I just think the supporting cast around James Graham or whoever starts at quarterback is going to be so much
Oh my gosh,
better.
Are you still talking, Michael?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm still talking. Ryan went and got his computer battery, came back, and I'm still
even chat a little chat with my
I've
wife.
only talked about the offense, Ryan. I'm only on the offense.
Oh my God.
Yeah, let's get to the defense. I'll be shorter on the defense. They should be hugely improved with everyone coming back. Transfers from Florida, Notre Dame becoming eligible. So I don't know exactly who Georgia Tech is going to beat because their non-conference game is against UCF, which is rough. But they found a way to go 2-6 in conference last year. I think 3-7 is doable.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on about the Ramblin' Wreck, they played almost all underclassmen this year. That's gonna improve, and behind a more experienced offensive line, I know they struggled, but they're at least experienced. Whether it's James Graham or Jeff Sims, I think if it's Graham in year 2 or Jeff Sims with the potential of his, how highly recruited he was, I think that the quarterback play should take a little bit bigger step this year. And you talked about the defense. They returned 13 of their top 14 tacklers. So there's some production there coming back. I just believe in Jeff Collins. I don't see why this youth movement won't improve a little bit. They won 3 games last year, so I think they can match that this year.
Yeah, and they had an overtime loss to the Citadel. So early on in the year, so they, I think they could have.
And they won at Miami. It was like super weird.
They beat Miami. They beat NC State. Almost beat Virginia. So I don't think they're that far off. And so a ton of returning production. Yeah, you guys mentioned a couple of grad transfers. Did you mention that, Michael, on the offensive line?
I did. Yeah, you can.
Okay. Well,
I didn't bring up their names. I don't remember their names.
I just remember Tennessee and Vanderbilt. I didn't write down their names.
That's what I said.
Vandy, I'm not so sure. We'll see. But the system that they had. I mean, when going into last year, the offensive linemen, their average height and weight was like 6'1", 265. For
That's not going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, that works for Paul Johnson, but it's not going to work for Jeff Collins. So they needed some new guys. So that'll help out, no matter, even if they're not like all stars. But yeah, I'm going over on Georgia Tech. I think they find a way to get 3.
All right, there we go. All 15 teams down. Let's just briefly recap this. So let's take a look here. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see all of our over/under picks. For the podcast listeners, we're podcast first, of course. So I'll go over it here. So our unanimous agreements are Clemson under 10.5. We are somehow betting against Clemson, going undefeated. Hasn't worked out the last couple of years. We're all over on Notre Dame at 8.5 wins. We're all over on North Carolina over 7.5, and Ryan made it his lock. We are all under on the Hurricanes under 7.5, and then 2 more unanimous agreements over on NC State over 4 wins, and Georgia Tech over 2.5. And then, of course, let's see, locks. My lock was over on Virginia Tech, and Trey, yours?
Under on Miami.
Okay.
We haven't had too many under locks, I feel like. Usually it's an overlock.
Well, I'm going for it this year with the ACC.
I'm just saying, just something I feel like I've noticed.
All right, here's our tiered rankings for the YouTube viewers. So let's just discuss these a little bit. What was the toughest decision as far as which tier they should be on? Because for me, I think looking at this, our tier 2 right now is North Carolina, Virginia Tech, Louisville, Miami, and Florida State. I think you could really easily argue Pitt should be on that tier 2. We made them tier 3, but
yeah,
it was just really tough to draw the line between 2 and 3.
I agree.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And then also going down to 3 and 4, I know it's getting low, but separating, like, we have NC State on tier 3, but Duke on tier 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I don't feel like there's a whole lot separating probably those teams.
Splitting hairs once you get down there.
Yeah, I totally agree.
I probably might have bumped NC State down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's it almost could have been like just put Pitt up to 2, and then have Virginia, Wake, and NC State drop down to 4, or just essentially have 3 tiers. With Virginia, Wake, NC State, Duke, Syracuse, BC, Georgia Tech, all just be the last tier together.
Yeah, very tough process. All right, there we go. There we have it. Let's move on to our final. Well, actually, not our final segment. We've got another one after this, but it is a very exciting segment because, Ryan, we are going to put you on the hot seat. Are you ready?
Oh, coming back to the hot seat. I like it.
Yeah, man. Let's do it.
Okay.
All right, Ryan. Who is your dark horse Heisman candidate in the ACC?
All right, I'm not necessarily super high on this team, but if they do have a big year, it will be because of this guy, Mikael Cunningham, at Louisville. He's explosive. He obviously has, in the short time we saw him last year, I guess it wasn't super short, but he was awesome. So if he had a little more experience, he would have been a Heisman contender last year if he really got all of the season played. So he could. If he's the guy, I could see him taking it.
Okay. Which true freshman do you expect to make the biggest impact to his team?
I'm going to go with Myles Murphy. And the reason why I'm picking Myles Murphy is because both Clemson and North Carolina have a true freshman named Myles Murphy.
Wow.
Yeah. And they surprisingly are both strong side defensive ends. And they were both extremely highly recruited. Clemson's Myles Murphy was a 5-star, like 7th overall rated overall player, and North Carolina's was like a super high 4-star. So I get 2 for the price of 1 there. And,
wow, that's creative.
Whichever one has
Brian Brzee, number 1 overall player.
Yeah, but I'm hearing Myles Murphy's actually looking. The Clemson's Myles Murphy's looking really good.
I'm hearing Brian Brzee's looking pretty dang good.
Well, they're both gonna be good.
This is the hot seat, Ryan.
Myles Murphy, bro.
Okay.
All right. Which player will lead the conference in receiving yards?
Yeah, that's a toughie because there's, no Sage Surratt, so that makes it slightly easier. Although his teammate Donovan Green could have a big year now. But you still got Tutu Atwell from Louisville. You still got Tamion Terry from Florida
Tamarian
State.
Terry, yeah.
Oh, what was I? Did I
Tamarian.
say Tamarian?
You keep saying Tamian.
Oh, I did? Oh.
And I wasn't going to correct you, but now that you're on the hot seat, I'm going to do it.
I said Tamarian, no?
Let the record show. Well, the listeners will know.
I know it's not. Okay, whatever. So, yeah, Terry.
Yeah.
And you got North Carolina's duo of Brown and Newsome. So those are kind of your main four. I think I'm going to go with Daz Newsome, though, from North Carolina. He's Sam Howell's favorite target, so you just can't really go with that. I think Sam Howell will have a huge year, and I'll go with them.
Okay. Last question. What's a bigger weakness in someone's game? Keaton Thompson's passing accuracy on the football field or your driving accuracy on the golf course?
Well, my driving accuracy now, I would have to say, yeah.
Is a bigger weakness.
Is a bigger weakness, yeah. Maybe 5-6 years ago. I was okay then, but boy, I really just went downhill fast.
All right. Very good.
Golf is such a crazy game. I mean, you can just go in flux. I mean, Trey, you're always good. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, it's all relative. It goes in waves.
I remember that time I shot a 79 with you, and I was, it was like and it's in this ranch, decent course, and that was not that long ago. I mean, 6 years
in there.
ago, maybe.
You've got it in you.
I don't know if I do anymore. It's been a while since I've had a decent round.
All right, let's get to our championship picks. So, of course, there's no divisions in the ACC. That's just going to be one big 15-team league. And we didn't even bring up the fact about how crazy it is that Notre Dame is playing in the ACC this year. But who's going to be, Ryan? Who's going to be in your championship game?
I got Clemson, surprise, surprise, versus North Carolina. I'm taking the Irish. I think they'll be a little bit surprised.
The Irish.
Oh, I saw your guys's. Michael put up the graphic, and I said North Carolina, didn't I?
And
yeah,
did, but then you said the Irish.
And then I looked over at both of you guys, and you both had something else. So I kind of gave yours away there.
That's fine.
But yeah, I'm taking the Tar Heels. Wow, I'm off my game.
Okay, so interesting. Obviously, Trey and I both taking Notre Dame. Trey, did you have to think about it much? Or obviously, we all have Clemson winning.
Yeah,
of course. Yeah. But did you have to think about it much, or was Notre Dame a clear choice for you?
I thought about it briefly, but I really like the Irish this year. So it seemed too good to be true. It was like too easy for me, Clemson and Notre Dame.
Yeah, I agree. I think Notre Dame's a pretty clear number 2. But I will say, if they're even, slightly worse than we expect, there are a ton of teams that could vie for that number 2 spot. Because stop when I get to a team that would surprise you if they made the ACC championship game. You got Virginia Tech, North Carolina, Miami.
Yeah, Miami.
It would surprise you if De'Aaron King goes off? All right, well.
I would.
Ignore Ryan then.
I'm still going.
Louisville?
Florida. Yeah.
Florida State?
Florida State, I think, probably my last one, I think.
Okay, and then Pitt. What about Pitt?
Yeah, I'm not there yet. I don't see Pitt.
Fair. But the point is, there's number 2 could be pretty competitive.
That's very true. Very, very true.
I picked UNC over Notre Dame just because they get them in Chapel Hill. But
yeah,
okay, that makes sense.
So I think it could come down to that game. That might be the deciding factor.
Fair. I wanted to take Virginia Tech. I obviously am taking Clemson over Notre Dame. I wanted to take Virginia Tech in it because I'm so high on them relative to everybody else, relative to the market, and I love Hendon Hooker. But yeah, I just think Notre Dame's a little better.
Yep.
Okay. Mercifully, we are to the last segment of the podcast.
It's like longest episode ever.
15 teams. It's a lot
of teams.
It's a lot of teams.
Fun. And so it is now time for the questionable finish. Mikhail Cunningham made an out-of-the-blue decision last year to go by his first name, Mikhail, instead of his middle name, Malik. If you could change your first name to any other name, what would it be?
Asking me this question is a bit ironic considering a lot of people know me as Trey, which isn't even my real name. Obviously, Roger. So go by Trey since I'm the third. So I guess I just got to say my nickname. I'd go by Trey.
Yep.
All
fair
right.
enough.
Yeah, that's fair. I decided to just pick a brand new name. So I enjoy odds and sports gambling. Of course, we all do. My bookie. But I'm going to say Chance Newman. That's a good name.
Chance the Rapper.
Yeah, Chance Newman. Chance Mock.
Newman.
Chance Mock. Yeah. Old quarterback.
Okay. I'm gonna go with I just kind of like this name lately. Parker.
Okay.
All right. No,
Just a normal.
Just chose a
random name.
normal name that I like. Coached a basketball kid one time. His name was Parker. Great kid, top of the line kid.
Parker Newman. That works.
Parker Newman. Yeah.
All right. Duke head coach, according to Ryan, Dave Clawson, but actually David Cutcliffe is known as a quarterback guru. If you were a guru of something, what would it be?
What I want to be, or what do I think I actually am?
No, I guess you take the question as you wish.
I thought you mentioned it as I thought it was asked like what you actually think you actually know about pretty well now.
That was how I meant the question.
Okay, good. All right. I'll go with something that I feel most confident in myself in doing is coaching basketball. I feel pretty confident in myself that I'm pretty good at that. Probably more so than anything else that's in my life. So, yeah,
definitely better coach than brother. That's for sure.
And podcasting.
I probably wait for the podcasting. Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, there you go. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I would be the guru of cautious driving. I don't speed. I always use my turn signal. I don't even change lanes unless I need to. I don't like when people are bobbing and weaving on the freeway. So I
hate that too.
I would preach cautious driving.
If I was a guru of something, it would be the love guru.
Okay. Let's get Allie on the podcast. See if she agrees.
Yeah, exactly. I'm kidding.
You'd be laughing really loudly right now.
I just think I could be like a problem guru in the sense that I should have been a counselor or a psychiatrist. I feel like I'm able to present rational arguments or viewpoints to both sides of any situation. So I think I could present that maybe being a marriage counselor. I could present both sides in a rational way to them.
All right. Our music stopped. Whoops. Give us a bold prediction about the ACC that you don't totally believe, but is more likely than people think. So I'll actually go first here. And it is that in the last game of the year at Lane Stadium, Virginia Tech is going to hand Clemson their first loss of the season. And Hendon Hooker is going to win the Heisman.
Right. Fuente, coach of the year.
Not that one. Yeah, Fuente, coach of the year.
I'm actually along those lines. So I'm pretty bullish on Notre Dame. I'm actually going to say that Notre Dame could win the regular season in a tiebreaker over Clemson because Clemson has to go to South Bend, and then they also have a game like that at Lane Stadium in December. It's not unrealistic to think that Clemson could lose one or two games.
All right. I'm going to say that Georgia Tech will finish in the rankings above two different teams. So most people will have them finishing farly dead last. I think they'll finish above two teams this year.
I could see that happening.
Could be BC, could be Syracuse, Dukes. Somebody's going to tank.
All right. Thanks for listening to a long episode of the College Football Bros podcast. Again, use that promo code CFBROS, not CFB Bros, CF Bros at MyBookie if you're interested in betting college football this fall. And we will be back with a new episode on Thursday morning. And we're previewing real, actual FBS college football games this weekend. So, can't wait. Talk to you then.
You've been listening to the College Football Bros. If you have any questions for the next podcast, email them to collegefootballbros@gmail.com. To keep up with the brothers on social media, like them on Facebook at College Football Bros, follow them on Instagram at College Football Bros, and for their commentary on Saturdays, follow them on Twitter at CFB Bros. Thanks for listening.